Back on Get Up, statement of the night made in French by Victor Wembanyama. Game 2, Wolves Spurs. San Antonio at home, down 1-0. First quarter, watch him influence both sides of the floor. Rudy Gobert, nope, not taking that shot. And now we're going the other way, and stay with it. Spurs up, no good. Here comes Wemby. Come on.
How many times do you get a highlight on an offensive rebound for a player who wasn't in the frame?
A magnet to the rim.
Here's some more.
Oh, that's great.
Wembanyama.
You can see it
early.
Yes, that's the mission. Get in the paint, not on the three-point line.
Late in the first half here, Spurs are up by 14. Remember, Wembanyama was 0 for 8 from 3 in Game 1.
Deep one.
Right on cue.
Deep.
Good call. Good call, Alan.
He had 14 points in the first half last night. Spurs up 17.
Watch
now
the catch,
down.
Michael. Watch the
catch. And straight up.
Shot
clock down, totally
watch
aware.
Him shoot this in the air.
Totally aware. What a talent.
Is that an alley-oop 3?
Spurs by 29. That's Vassell again. Spurs by 25. That's a 4-point play. Minute later, Stephon Castle. They just come at you in waves, Michael.
They do. Harper, Castle. We haven't mentioned De'Aaron Fox yet.
No, and he had a great first quarter.
Everyone knows Wembanyama. What you don't realize is this team is loaded with guys who are all about the same size and can all do stuff. And there's Wembanyama again. Wemby, 19 points, 15 boards, 2 blocks. This one was over early. San Antonio handing Minnesota its largest postseason loss in franchise history. The 38-point win, the third largest playoff win in San Antonio's history. Here was Minnesota head coach Chris Finch after the loss.
Well, I mean, they just kicked our butt in every aspect of the game tonight. So offensively, defensively, it didn't matter. They took it to us, and we didn't really respond very well.
What do you say to your team after a tough loss like this, or do you let the stat sheet speak for itself?
No, I just told them we just got punked.
They got punked in Game 2. It's all even going back to Minnesota. Win-man, number one takeaway.
Repeatedly so far in this playoff journey for the Spurs, they've impressed me. Several, Series 1 against the Blazers, they lose Victor Wembanyama. That's 1-1 going up to Portland. They fall down in the first half. They respond. Game 4, Wembanyama comes back. They fall down again. They respond. They have a very narrow, frustrating loss in Game 1. Their vision, they're sticking to their game plan, their intensity right out of the gate in this one, they respond. Now, winning the first 5 playoff games and winning the next 5, 2 different stories. But for a team whose biggest impediment is its lack of experience and time together in these moments, I continue to be impressed with how they handle their business. They handled their business. Here's where I was really impressed. It was a 24-point game at halftime, right? They come out in the third quarter like a veteran team and push it to 40 because they don't want to mess around. The Spurs are impressing me by the week right now.
This is like what Wendy, my bad. What Wendy's talking about is maturity. And that's something that we keep questioning about this team. This Spurs team. You lose a Game 1 like that at home, sometimes that can be crushing to a young team. How do you recover? Maybe they overreact to Game 2. They handled that Game 1 loss as well as you possibly could for a frustrating loss you could have and walked into Game 2 saying, we're going to get back to playing our game. That's the maturity factor for a very young team. That's why you've got to take this team seriously.
You know where I found that? I found this story after our show yesterday. So after Game 1, after the Spurs had lost Game 1, Wembanyama walked over to De'Aaron Fox. They whispered briefly at their locker, and they walked away laughing. And Wembanyama was asked what he said. Fox was, and he said, we talked about how we were in a good place. We played like bleep, and we lost by 2. That's what a mature team does. A mature team doesn't panic. They say, we're actually in good shape. We played as bad as we can play, and we still almost won.
There's something inside of Wemby, specifically, Wembanyama, that helps facilitate that. He hates losing at a level that reminds me of the GOATs, the Council of GOATs. He hates losing like Bird hated losing, like Jordan hated losing, like Isaiah Thomas hated losing. He hates losing in a way that, even as pleasant as he is, all right, with that wonderful lilt in his accent, he probably made it a little uncomfortable in that locker room in the day that they had. And you look at his demeanor last night, he wanted to crush them. And Minnesota, they were back on their heels. And Anthony Edwards talked about this. He thought, okay, we got to come in like the mature team that does not settle for the effort of game one. We got game one. Let's not come in here and have human nature dictate the terms of our performance. That's exactly what happened. But the human nature of the other dude,
I was about to say.
Wembanyama hates. It's like, remember when he was crying after the Olympic game,
of
and then after they lost the game in Vegas, his first time in the Cup. That's the level of hatred of losing I'm talking about that affects that team.
So you go on the road with the intention of stealing one, and the Timberwolves did that. Then they get, in their own coach's word, punked in game two. So who has the advantage in this series now headed back to Minnesota?
I would give it slightly to Minnesota just because they stole a game. But to me, if this San Antonio team continues to demonstrate the maturity that we're talking about, they're looking to go and make a statement in game two, or game three, rather. Now, I do think that Minnesota should be credited for the type of grit and maturity that they have. The issue when I look at it as Minnesota is how healthy are they? What's going on with Anthony? Is he improving through this thing, or is it going to rob him of some of his bounce, which is quintessential to his game? Is Ayo Dosunmu coming back? Like the whole thing.
Winman, quick final word.
I'm thinking about Wilbon's Council of Goats.
Yeah, me too.
They've got to meet with fine Corinthian leather. It's so mentally difficult to play against Victor Wembanyama that you need perimeter scoring. Ayo Dosunmu came back last night, didn't look good, couldn't make an outside shot. Ant Edwards, his first 5 shots are threes. He misses those. They need scoring from their guards going forward when they go back to Minnesota.
All right, much more hoops as we go, but moving.
A heated debate in the first hour of the show, if you missed it, go back on the podcast and listen, about the idea of, is Mike Brown actually still coaching for his job because of the moves that the Knicks made at the end of last season in terminating the contract of Tom Thibodeau, head coach. The Knicks have won 5 games in a row. They have been awesome this postseason. But Myron, you have said over and over again, cool. What am I supposed to be so impressed with Mike Brown? It's only the second round of the playoffs. Explain.
Yeah, I don't get the hype at this point. I don't know what Mike Brown's doing differently than what Tibbs did. Like, this was a really good team last year. They were on the brink of getting to the finals. They were in Game 7 with a team that took OKC to 7 games. So the Knicks have been in a position to contend from the moment Mike Brown took the job. So to me, if he falls short of getting them to the finals, I think it's a failure as a coaching hire. Because why fire Tibbs to just be in the same spot? So I get that the Knicks are a fun storyline, but if they miss the finals, I give them an F for the season.
An F for the season?
Well, that's the goal. The goal has to be the finals. That's why you fired Tibbs to bring in Mike Brown, because you said Mike Brown's better than Tibbs. He's better than the last guy we had. The only way to prove that is to make it to the NBA Finals.
Yeah, we're trying to talk about what is a successful season for the Knicks and whether or not Mike Brown could potentially be one and done as a head coach of the Knicks. And you know who could answer that question? The guy who could make the decision, in James Dolan. And let's go back to earlier this year. In January of 2026, the governor of the Knicks, James Dolan, said, we want to get to the finals and we should win the finals. Getting to the finals, we absolutely got to do. This is what he is telling you. He is telling you what happened last year was not good enough. And that not only is reflected in the firing of Tom Thibodeau and the hiring of Mike Brown, he doubled down during the season to say this is the goal. This is our only measure of success. And so I agree with him. If this is what he's saying the Knicks need to do in order for the team to be successful, and this is Mike Brown's only job, then if they fall short of it, it was a failure.
Yeah, I'm not a Knicks fan by any stretch of the imagination. I don't understand the negative approach towards this team today. That was such an impressive win last night. That was a championship kind of win for me. When I know you could say, what, say it again?
It's a championship type of win, but you have to win the championship in order for it to happen.
But what would make you think right now they couldn't get to the finals?
Right now,
No, they can.
They look great. They absolutely look great. But this is also playoff basketball, and they have tough opponents, and crazier things have happened. And we're not talking about whether or not we were impressed by them last night and by their performance in the first 2 games of this series versus Philly. We're talking about what they need to do in order for this to be a successful season, and for us to think that Mike Brown holistically did a good job.
Yeah, I'm bothered by the idea that Knicks fans want us to have a parade today and hold a ceremony where we give Mike Brown some award and we pat everybody on the back and say, good job for getting to this point. That's never been the goal. It was always to get to the finals, so I'm not sure why it's a problem when you hold this team to that standard.
So then, Myron, let me ask you this then. When does the Knicks season start? I know that sounds like an odd question, but if we're not going to say that Mike Brown and the New York Knicks have garnered enough praise or money in the bank, so to speak, where we're ready to anoint them of anything because of the Tibbs firing, the Knicks season starts for you when?
Game 1 of the Eastern Conference Finals if they get there. Because that to me is where you were last year. Mm-hmm. And if there could be a different outcome, then yeah, I'll stand up and say Mike Brown was the right guy. He did something that Tibbs couldn't. If they fall short in that situation, I'll say the hire was a bad hire. They hired a guy who had struggled and got fired in Sacramento. Yes, he had past success. He came in with one job. Can you get this team to the finals or not? That's the only question that matters.
But Myron, hold on. Backtrack for a second. If the New York Knicks had a job opening that they posted on ZipRecruiter and the qualifications included, the first line of the job opening on ZipRecruiter had to be, you must get us to the finals. Why would Tom Thibodeau even be an option? Well, he's not a guy that gets you to the finals. What Tom Thibodeau is great at is getting you out of the mud. That's what he's great at. Like, if you're bad and you want to get good, hire Tibbs. If you're good and you want to get great, I don't know that he's that guy. And I'm not trying to come off and knock the guy at all. He's a great coach. But he's not a good to great. He's a bad to good.
I mean, he's one game away from changing that narrative, right? Like, they were right there. So to me, if you told me they lost 4-0 or something, 4-1 in the Eastern Conference Finals, fine. They were right there. And then that Pacers team they should have defeated took OKC to 7 games. So I don't think you can say that about Tibbs. But if Mike Brown doesn't get them to that stage, then why is Mike Brown a better option?
But Myron, I'm not even just talking about Tom Thibodeau with the Knicks. I'm talking about with the Bulls. And now they were in the Big Three Heatles era, so it was very difficult. But Derrick Rose MVP, they had a lineup that had Derrick Rose, Joakim Noah, Luol Deng. I mean, they had really good players on that team. He's a very good coach. But if the New York Knicks, there's one expectation, and that I'm not a Knicks fan, but I am now, hey, throw cold water on it. I shouldn't be making a big deal about a 108-102 victory over Philadelphia last night. And who cares that if it's a championship type victory if you don't get to the finals? But Tibbs is like simultaneously Tibbs is still not the guy that you would put the money on to get you to the finals.
But he's taken his team farther than what Mike Brown has so far.
But Mike Brown's been to the finals as a head coach.
Wait, okay, he was with who? And when? Like what Mike Brown did.
2007 LeBron James Cleveland Cavaliers.
I don't remember when Mike Brown did it. Look, Tibbs was there last season. Fine. If Mike Brown can get this team beyond that point, I'll raise my hand and say this is the guy. If he doesn't do that, he's not better than Tibbs. Because the only reason you fired Tibbs is because you think Mike Brown can do more. He's got to prove it. Why do people want to hold a parade for Mike Brown today?
I'm not trying to hold a parade for him.
Why do we want to throw a Mike Brown party today because they had a good win? This is what the Knicks are supposed to do. That's the standard. I don't think we should give them extra praise for that.
So is he on the hot seat?
He should be if they don't get to the finals.
So are there other coaches in the postseason that you would look at and say, I think this coach is actually on the hot seat in the post. Like Mike Brown is a 2-0 lead in the Eastern Conference semifinals without Mitchell Robinson, who's one of the best rebounders in the NBA last night. And then OG may not be playing the rest of this series or some of the games in this series. He could be playing the next game for all I know, but it's on the table. Are there other coaches that are, as wild as this sounds, coaching for their job in the playoffs here?
Evan, are you making the Knicks an underdog? That's what I'm trying to say.
No.
They sound like an underdog to you.
Multiple things can be true simultaneously, right? Okay. They made a bold decision last year to move on from Tom Thibodeau. They have finals or bust. If you have finals or bust, Tibbs would not be the coach that I would choose. Period, next sentence. I thought the Knicks win was really impressive last night. I thought it was more impressive than game one because it would have been a lot easier, Smalls, to just sit there and say, Embiid's not playing, we're good.
Right.
And the Sixers came out like, all right, we got to make up for the fact that this former MVP who helped us come back from 3-1 down against the Celtics is not playing. We got to be grimy and figure out a way of doing it. And they almost did. 25 lead changes, as you mentioned. But the Knicks held on. Ugly moments late, and they still scored. 12 points allowed in the fourth quarter. Like, I'm going to give a team credit in the moment when they play well. That doesn't mean that we should have a parade for them.
But I think we're conflating the two. We're talking about two separate things. We, of course, can praise the Knicks for not only their victory last night, but the way they've looked so far in this series versus Philly. The first two games, they've been incredibly impressive, and impressive for different reasons. But that does not mean that that's good enough. That does not mean that if they don't get to the finals, that we are if they don't get to the finals, do you think, let's say it was over the weekend, do you think on a Monday, we're going to come here and crack the mics and be like, well, like game 2 versus Philly.
Yeah, of course.
Gutsy win by them.
Of course.
We're not going to do that. And maybe that's unfair, but when you have the owner, the governor of the team, saying that personnel is not the issue, we collectively have put together a group of talent that is capable of getting to and winning a finals. So much so that we're doubling down on it. And the only real piece that we're changing, or at least the piece we're highlighting the most, is the head coach. We move on from Tibbs, who got us to a place we have not been in a quarter century. In 25 years. They get to the Eastern Conference Finals and it's not good enough. Then if they lose, whenever that happens, if it happens, we're not going to come in and talk about things like that. The nuance and the context is lost because they did not reach what they told us was their goal.
So in the NFL, we made a decision before the season as a show. We're like, we're not going to overreact to any Bills or Ravens loss in the regular season. We're just going to worry about what they do come January because that's all we care about. Are we actually making a mistake talking about the Knicks at all? Should they only be talked about when they get to the Eastern Conference Finals, which they're going to do, because we are now making this overriding statement that no game, no trend, no situation matters until the Eastern Conference Finals?
But Evan, you just said Tibbs is irrelevant because he's not a championship caliber coach.
I didn't say he was irrelevant.
You said he's not a guy who can get you to the championship.
That's what I believe. Correct.
Okay. And you brought up his failures and his mistakes over the course of his career. So you put him in that category. So why not say, okay, then Mike Brown has to do better? Like, to me, if you're the Knicks and you're their fan base, you should want that to be the narrative.
Of course.
You should want that to be the expectation. What it feels like people are doing is they want a parachute. They want to be able to say, if for some reason Mike Brown can't get to the finals, let's come up with a series of excuses as to why that didn't happen. And I'm not going to agree with that excuses list. There's one job for Mike Brown. There's one job for the Knicks. And if we change that, then I think we're being hypocrites compared to what we did with Tibbs a year ago.
Understood. So then retroactively, what you're saying and moving forward is, don't come in here telling me it's a big win for the Knicks unless it's to get them to the finals.